Welcome to the first Devils Digest game preview of the 2022 season. ASU hosting NAU here at Sun Devil Stadium on Thursday at 7 p.m. I'm Nick Borgia. Alongside me is our publisher, Hode Urbino. And Hode, many people say that these early non-conference games are kind of a lose-lose. Not a whole lot for a team like the Sun Devils to maybe take away from this kind of game, but in a season like this season, would you say that mindset may be a little different coming into the game?
I absolutely think so, Nick, because let's face it, it has not been an easy off-season for ASU. I feel that this program, from a media perspective and from even sometimes a fan perspective, has really been beaten like a piñata. And I'm not even trying to say this to be funny. I think that's a pretty accurate portrayal of what this program has gone through. I mean, expectations are really just almost at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to how do you handicap this team compared to other Pac-12 foes. So I think that it's absolutely imperative that ASU not only win a game they're supposed to win, but really do it scoring a lot of style points. As we know, they got over 40 newcomers on the team. Brand new quarterback, brand new players at a lot of skill positions on offense. So this is definitely an ASU team that does have to make a statement. I mean, some people call a game like this a glorified scrimmage where you're charging fans admission, but nonetheless, I just think with everything that ASU has gone through, even if they do soundly beat a team like NAU, I mean, sure, there's always going to be folks that are going to discount it, but maybe some people that doubted the team can have just a tad bit more confidence than they had going into this Thursday game. So this is absolutely, at least in my opinion, not your quote-unquote typical cupcake game of the season.
And one of the biggest storylines from this offseason, of course, has been the addition of transfer quarterback Emory Jones. And he'll be making his debut as a Sun Devil on Thursday. Obviously, he was announced as the starting quarterback just last week. So, Hode, what do you think that he needs to bring to the table? What should he be showing up for with the Sun Devils?
Well, I mean, if anybody has heard or read my preseason pieces for the last few months, I feel that going into the 2022 season, it really is sort of a deja vu in terms of the passing game for Arizona State, at least in my opinion, absolutely dictating the fortunes of this team in the upcoming season. And even though you had a third-year starter in Jaden Daniels last year, and this year you have a brand new starter in Emory Jones, I just feel that element has not changed for ASU. I'm really curious to see how this passing game is really going to click. Now, look, but make no mistake about it. When you're playing Oklahoma State just a week later, needless to say that offensive coordinator Glenn Thomas is not going to open the playbook wide open. We're not going to see a lot of razzle and dazzle when it comes to ASU's aerial attack. But you basically want to see an efficient passing game. I think that's really something that, at least in my eyes, is really imperative for ASU to achieve. Now, with that efficiency, you really have to cut down the number of penalties, and that's something that would be maybe a small victory, if you will, especially against a team like NAU, where you're supposed to dominate anyway. So even if you win, let's say by 4 touchdowns, but still committed 8-9 penalties, I think that really does put a very adverse spin on such a victory. So to me, I'd like to see Emory Jones and the wide receivers, a lot of them new faces, obviously to the program, let alone to Emory Jones, really to be clicking on all cylinders. I don't think that the running game is really going to sputter, especially against a team like NAU, which we'll talk about a little later on, that doesn't have the greatest defense in the world. So this is definitely a game where ASU should dominate the line of scrimmage. But to me, it's really the passing game, how effective or ineffective it will be on Thursday, that can really determine what the scoreboard is going to look like. Is it going to be a victory of a much smaller margin than people expect it to be, or is it going to be the dominating victory that everybody expects it to be? And again, I think it's a fine line for Glenn Thomas and his players to walk, because you want to be explosive, but on the other hand, not really tipping your hand to Oklahoma State or any your future opponents as to what you're really planning to do from here on out on this side of the ball.
And if we look at the defense, obviously a lot of players at the transfer portal this past offseason, even players that declared for the NFL draft. But that front seven on the defensive side is still a pretty formidable thing for the Sun Devils. But when it comes to the secondary, maybe a few unanswered questions to answer there. What do you think about that, Hode?
Yeah, first of all, I definitely agree that the front seven of ASU is definitely a group that I would put against any Pac-12 team right now. I mean, sure, the loss of defensive end Michael Matusa was really a bitter pill to swallow, but I just feel that the defensive line really has a lot of depth. I'm expecting guys in the interior like Nesta Jade Silvera, the transfer from Miami, Omar Noman Lot, a returning player, to really anchor that line. And then you have defensive ends like Anthony Cooper, who I think was really underrated last year. Then you have Travez Moore, who transferred from LSU last year, was injured in the BYU game, if you remember. Really wasn't able to showcase his gamut of talents. I think that he's about to have a big year. And Joe Moore, no relationship by the way, is also a player that I expect can really wreak a lot of havoc from the defensive end position. At linebacker, you got Merlin Robinson and the Soule brothers as the 3 starters. I think that's as solid of a unit as you will find again anywhere in the conference. But in the secondary, it's not that you only have a lot of players that have seldom played, let alone newcomers to the team, but now you got some key injuries, like with cornerbacks to Marcus Davis and Jordan Clark. Jordan Clark obviously playing some safety too, aside from nickel. And if those players are not going to be available on Thursday, then now you need players that haven't played that much up until now, or again, just brand new faces to the team, step up their game that much more. So I'm really curious to see how the secondary is going to do. And this is really an NAU offense who, I don't know if I portray them as explosive, but I think it's a team with offensive coordinator Aaron Pflugrad, a wide receiver that played here at ASU, for those who remember, that really, maybe unlike Glenn Thomas, is really going to pull out all the stops and really try to catch this defense flat-footed, especially in the passing game. So I'm not saying that this is going to be the biggest test for the ASU secondary or for the ASU defense as a whole, but again, when you got so many new faces in the secondary, you're just really unsure how the group is going to look. And going back to your earlier point, I don't know if NAU, the way you perform in that game is really going to be a good barometer for what's going to happen later on this year. But much like the passing game, it really has to show out, even though the caliber of opponent is going to be much lower than the rest of the schedule. I think the same goes with the ASU defense and the ASU secondary in particular. They really have to come out and really have a strong performance, at least to show that they have the potential to possibly maybe be a surprise, at least in some pundits' eyes.
And ASU, obviously, so many questions surrounding the program, so many uncertainties. But this NAU game in particular, obviously a game that's circled on the calendar. It's just a must-win. This game has to be a win for the Sun Devils. But in your opinion, can this be a dominant win for the Sun Devils? Maybe not so dominant, a closer game? What do you think we're looking at here, Hode?
Well, I think what's the most interesting matchup over here is that I don't think this is a good NAU defense by any means, even on FCS levels. This is a lumberjack group that gave up 30 points or more in 6 games last year. Now, granted, some of those games were wins, but nonetheless, this is a defense that is not going to be much of a challenge to score on. But on the other hand, when you have Emory Jones, a brand new quarterback, when you have so many new skilled players now really being pushed to the forefront of this ASU offense, it's really impossible to judge or really to anticipate how well they're going to do. So that to me is really the biggest, I think, matchup that really is going to dictate if this is going to be, as you said, a dominant win, or maybe a win that is going to be, I'm not going to say too close to comfort, but maybe not of the convincing variety. But on the other hand, I really feel that this ASU defense can handle any NAU offense, who obviously does have some weapons over there. It is a team that beat U of A in Tucson, as we know, last year. So I think that is one aspect, Nick, that really causes ASU not to overlook NAU by any means. The athletic director for NAU joked that if they're going to beat ASU here on Thursday, maybe they should have the Territorial Cup on their display for 1 year. But nonetheless, I think that ASU does have enough weapons to make this a somewhat convincing win. I'm predicting a score of 34-13 in favor of the Sun Devils.
34-14. Alrighty, Hode. Thank you for your insight. As always, for all the game coverage, be sure to check out DevilsDigest.com. We have sights and sounds, game reports, you name it, we got it. Also, drop a follow on Twitter at DevilsDigest. And again, we'll see you on Thursday. I've been Nick Borgia for Hode Urbino and the rest of Devil's Digest. Thank you so much for tuning in.